Even the best legal writers often confuse words because they sound similar or have similar meanings. Watch out for words that sound the same but are spelled differently. Depending on the meaning, you'll often just need to memorize these. Also, watch out for word forms that change depending on your usage. Affect versus effect is a classic. Affect with an A is usually a verb, and effect is usually a noun. You can affect change, it's a verb, but after the effects are felt forever. Now, more rarely, affect can act as a noun, meaning an emotion or desire, but that's usually not what we mean in legal writing. Principle versus principle is another classic. Don't confuse school bosses with your beliefs. An easy way to remember the difference is principal ends with the name Al. Al is the boss, that's a school principal. And then the other, principal with an L-E, or your beliefs. Me, myself, and I, we get these confused all the time. The first step is to generally you're going to put other people's names before your own name. So if you're talking about you and others, put them first. And then you're going to choose me or I simply by removing those other names and seeing which is grammatical. John and I are off to the circus. If you were to take John out of there, you would never say, me is off to the circus. You'd say, I am off to the circus. John and I are going into town. Same thing. You wouldn't say, me is going into town. You'd say, I'm going into town. Give it to John and me to look after. You take John out of there, me is correct. Give it to me to look after. There versus there versus there. There with an R-E at the end is place. There, I-or is possession. They, apostrophe or is a contraction for they are. They didn't know their place in line over their direction, a place, was dependent on whether they or their ticketed passengers. It's a simple one that we still mess up often, so make sure you're double checking your writing for them. We legal writers love IE and EG. Make sure you know that IE means in other words, or that is to say, and EG is an example. And you can remember this by remembering that EG starts with an E. It means example. That's how you distinguish the two. They are not interchangeable. Who versus whom, like me, myself, and I, trips a lot of folks up. Just know that who acts as the subject and whom acts as the verb's object. So you're always going to have to do a little bit of diagramming here. Jones, who possessed the Jeep, so it's acting as the subject of the verb. The person who possessed the Jeep is on different footing. Books advise parents not to put children in the way of those whom you dare not trust. So those you do not trust is an object. They're not the subject acting out here. That versus which, you can find this in all sorts of even very impressive legal writing. Mistakes about that and which. The key is that is for dependent clauses, which is for an independent clause. And the difference here is the phrase or group of words after the that or which part of the main clause, the main subject, verb, object clause of the sentence. Jim had many challenges that plagued him. Plagued him is an essential part of the sentence. Jim had many challenges that plagued him. Jim had many challenges, which was the problem. Was the problem is not required by this sentence. It's not a dependent part of the sentence. You can set it off, and so we do the comma in the which. Another common one, but a straightforward one, fewer versus lesser. The key here is that fewer is used when referring to individual or countable things that you can put a number on. There are 3 fewer filings today than yesterday. You're going to use lesser when it's anything else. So volume or degree or quantity, mass nouns, units or measures of time. Lay versus lie. The trick here is that lay requires a direct object and lie does not. Lay the book down. Lay is referring to that direct object, the book, so we use lay. I will lie down on the sofa. Here, lie refers to the person sitting down, not the direct object of the sentence. Be careful about all the homonyms out there that will have different spellings depending on your usage. So bear, in terms of being naked, versus bear the animal. Allowed, which means permitted, versus allowed, which is not silent. Advice versus advice. Break versus break.